Hey guys, tonight we slip through time and sand into a world of sun scorched soil, towering monuments, and rituals whispered beneath flickering oil lamps. You're not a noble, not a priest, not even a merchant. You're a regular person, an ancient Egyptian trying to make it through just one day. The dry Nile breeze tugs at your linen tunic. The air smells of barley mash and camel sweat. Insects hum in your ear, and something sticky is crawling up your calf. This isn't a museum exhibit. This is real, and it's going to be rough. You probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Tell me in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is right now. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake before the sun. There's no choice. In this part of Egypt, the sky begins to lighten well before dawn, and once Ra starts his ascent, the heat becomes less of a suggestion and more of a punishment. You sit up on your woven straw mat, spine aching, and stretch, but immediately regret it. Your legs are covered in tiny welts. Mosquitoes? Maybe. Fleas? Likely. Either way, you're already itchy and annoyed, and the day hasn't even started. You duck beneath the thatched door frame of your mud brick home. It's barely the size of your kitchen back home. If you have one, there's no privacy, no walls inside, and everyone in your household, parents, siblings, maybe even a grandparent, has been snoring and twitching inches from you all night. No air conditioning, no mosquito netting, just dust and the occasional scorpion. The morning air isn't cool, it's just less hot. You squint toward the river, hoping to catch a breeze. Instead, a neighbor passes by, leading a stubborn goat, and gives you a look that says, "Hurry up, you're on water duty today." You trudge toward the Nile, empty clay jars strapped to a yoke on your shoulders. Each step kicks up a puff of dust. Your bare feet crunch over rough pebbles. In the distance, water glimmers, but it's deceptive. That walk is a good half hour, and once you get there, you'll have to watch for crocodiles. Yep, the same crocodiles your neighbor claims eat children. Historians still argue whether attacks were common or exaggerated to scare kids into obedience. But you're not risking it. You grip a stick tight. At the riverbank, the Nile looks majestic, calm, ancient, and then you slip on wet reeds and land flat on your back. The splash earns laughter from an old man perched nearby who hasn't bathed in days and smells like pickled onions. You don't laugh back, your back hurts. Your pride hurts more. Water hold? You return home with sloshing jaws and a pounding headache. The dust sticks to your sweat. You're now covered in what historians today call Egyptian grime, a mixture of sweat, sand, river scum, and a dash of fish guts from the dock. Lovely. Now for breakfast. Don't expect eggs and toast. Your meal is simple: stale emmer bread. It's coarse, hard, and filled with little granules of grit. You don't know whether the crunch is seeds or sand. You chew slowly, wondering if your teeth will crack. Ancient Egyptian teeth, historians note, were notoriously worn down due to the high sand content in bread. Guess you'll find out why soon. The beverage? Beer. Not the kind you're thinking of. This is more like a thick, porridgey brew made from fermented barley. It smells like a sock and tastes like Someone soaked bread in warm pond water. Still, it's calories and hydration, sort of. A neighbor shouts your name. They need help patching a roof. You grab a handful of dates for energy, pocket them, and head out. Along the way, you trip over a wandering goose. It honks angrily. Geese are sacred to some gods, so you mutter a quick apology. You're not about to risk divine wrath over poultry. Back at the neighbor's, you're handed a tool, a bent piece of copper for scraping mud and straw into plaster. The sun's higher now, and the sweat pours freely. You wipe your brow. The salty sting reminds you, no showers today, maybe tomorrow or next week. As you work, a small child brings a wet cloth, scented faintly with myrrh. She presses it to your neck. You sigh with gratitude until you realize the cloth was last used on a goat's hoof. The scent now carries a hint of barnyard funk. You keep working anyway. By midday, your vision swims. Heat radiates off the clay walls. You think about the Nile again, about that moment earlier when the breeze touched your face. Brief, precious. You hear priests chanting in the distance, probably in honor of Thoth or Bastet. You're not sure which. The words blur together in the heat haze. You press a palm to your forehead. Is it supposed to feel this hot? A passing scribe walks by, under an elegant linen parasol, fanning himself with a palm leaf. He doesn't even glance at you. His tunic is crisp. His sandals have laces. You consider growling something sarcastic, but remember, scribes are educated, respected. If you offend one, you might end up cursed in ink forever. And believe it or not, those curses, not just superstition, archaeologists have found tombs with inscriptions warning of disease, madness, or scorpion infestations for anyone who disturbs the rest of the dead. You're not taking chances, not on day one. Finally, back home, your mother offers you something cooling. It's a paste, brownish green, chunky. You hesitate. What is it? You ask. She grins. Crocodile dung and goose fat keeps the sun from blistering. You stare. She stares back. You apply the paste. The afternoon fades, but your day has barely begun. Your arms ache. Your feet feel like they've walked across hot bricks. You smell like a fermented bird. And the worst part? You haven't even reached the temple shift yet. But hey, at least you're not dead. Yet. You're still trying to rub that crocodile dung paste off your arms when a shadow falls across your doorway. It's your cousin, slightly taller, slightly bossier, here to remind you. Temple duty. Now you groan internally. Temple duty means one thing: waking up before Ra tomorrow again. Because in ancient Egypt, the gods don't care if you're tired. You stagger into the dusty street. It's mid-afternoon, and the sun is still a merciless disk, glaring from its throne above the date palms. Every surface radiates heat. You're pretty sure your sandals are melting into the ground with every step. The clay roads feel like walking on embers. If your feet weren't calloused already, they're going to be by nightfall. As you shuffle toward the temple, your mind drifts. You remember what one of the older boys said last week about someone collapsing on the job and being mistaken for a sacrifice. You hope he was joking. Historians still argue whether some laborers were ever offered to the gods during festivals, or whether that's more myth than fact. But looking around at the towering obelisks and stern stone deities, you're not feeling too confident. Your cousin nudges you. Focus. He mutters. High Priest Setep's in a mood. Ah, great Setep, the man who hasn't smiled since the year of the bent Nile flood. The kind of priest who'd report you for blinking wrong near the sacred ibis. You tighten your grip on the reed broom you've been handed. Time to sweep again. The temple interior is cooler, but only slightly. The air smells heavily of incense and crushed lotus blossoms, a perfume that clings to your nose like wet clay. It should be soothing, but instead it makes you dizzy. You look up and marvel again at the massive painted columns, the hieroglyphs crawling upward like vines telling stories of gods, kings, and wars. Each wall screams grandeur, and here you are, brushing gold droppings off the floor behind a column no one will ever thank you for cleaning. Still, you try to do it right. One direction only. Never turn your back on the altar. That's temple rule number one. You learned it the hard way 2 weeks ago, when a boy your age accidentally spun mid-sweep and knocked over a small offering bowl. That evening, he disappeared from the temple roster. You've never seen him since. When you asked the older priests, they only said he offended Thoth. You glanced nervously at the ibis statue. The eyes seemed to follow you. On your way to the next hall, you bump into a much older temple servant who is carrying a basket of sacred bread shaped like little crocodiles. He glares at you. Watch it. He snaps, this batch is for Sekhmet. You blink. You thought Sekhmet got beer? He walks away before you can ask. Ancient Egyptian gods had very specific snack preferences, apparently. Your job changes halfway through the shift. You're now on pod detail, which unfortunately isn't the relaxing kind. You're scrubbing ceremonial jars caked with dried honey, milk curd, and something sticky you really hope isn't blood. Every time you stick your hand in one, you half expect to pull out a snake, or a ghost, or a ghost snake. A priest passes by and drops a nugget of wisdom, like it's casual conversation. These jars are from the tomb of a 6th dynasty official. Careful, he was known for revenge curses. Then he just leaves. You stare at the jar. It hums faintly. You tell yourself it's just the heat. Outside, a group of wealthy visitors enters the courtyard. You freeze. They're fanning themselves with ostrich plumes, dropped in linen, so fine it looks like cloud mist. One of the women sees you and crinkles her nose, like you're a part of the flooring. You suddenly become very aware that you smell like incense, dung paste, sweat, and anxiety. Still, you bow respectfully. That's what you're supposed to do. But as they move past, one child points at you and says, is he the one they offer to Bastet? Everyone laughs. You do not. The rest of the temple duty blurs into a slow dance of sweeping, polishing, bowing, and pretending you know which gods go with which symbols. You once confused Anubis and Sobek during a festival. You had nightmares for a week, real ones, involving jackals with crocodile teeth. As twilight settles, the temple bells chime and signal the end of your shift. You shuffle outside, legs aching, the air now a dusky orange. The priests begin the evening chants. You pause for a second to listen. There's something haunting in it, melodic, like wind over bones. It's strangely beautiful. One priest turns, sees you listening, and raises an eyebrow. You quickly bow and scurry off. You make it home just as the stars begin to peek through the veil of dusk. Your tunic is damp and stained, your feet raw, your brain buzzing with hymns and temple rules. You slump against the outer wall of your house, too tired to speak. Your cousin joins you, chewing on a sprig of mint. You did all right, he mutters. You nod, then wince. Even your neck hurts. The stars shimmer above. You think about the gods, about the painted walls and sacred bread, about the fact that tomorrow you have to wake up even earlier, and about the very real possibility that if you offend the wrong ibis, your next job might involve mummification from the inside, and still, you're not the worst off. At least you're not sleeping with the livestock yet. You wake before dawn again, not because you're eager, but because someone is retching outside your door. Probably Atif, the neighbor who insists on drinking unfiltered Nile beer, like it's medicinal. You groan and stretch, but your spine protests. Everything aches. Your arms, your neck, your calves, especially your calves. They feel like someone stuffed them with river stones overnight. Today you're assigned to help out in the fields. Again, it's not glamorous, it's not sacred, it's just irrigation, labor, and mud. Lots of mud. You thought temple sweeping was hard? That was the warm up act. You walk toward the edge of your village, rubbing your eyes. A rooster struts past like it owns the place. It does. In many ways, chickens here have a better routine than you. No taxes, no shadoofs. Ah, yes, the shadoof, a long, counterbalanced pole used to lift water from the canal into the irrigation ditches. Simple in theory, brutal in execution. You've seen farmers pull their backs just lifting the wooden bucket. You're barely old enough to be considered field strong. But guess what? You're on the list now. The sun isn't even fully up, but the heat already presses against your chest like a heavy linen sheet, soaked in sweat. By the time you reach the field, your sandals are sliding in the muck. Barefoot seems smarter until you step on a thorn. Welcome to rural Egypt. The foreman gives you the nod, and you start pumping water. It sounds rhythmic, almost soothing at first. Sploosh, lift, sploosh, dump. But 10 minutes in, your arms are on fire. Your hands blister. The wooden beam creaks like it's laughing at you. And the farmer next to you, an older woman, with the shoulders of a pharaoh's statue, doesn't even break a sweat. She gives you a side glance. City boy? You nod. Thought so. While you pump water, flies buzz around your face like miniature curses. You swat at them, but they keep coming back. One finds its way into your mouth. You gag. The old woman laughs. You don't. You pause for a moment just to catch your breath, but a younger boy is already behind you, waving. No stopping, he hisses. The foreman sees that you get docked grain rations. Wait, grain rations? You didn't realize they were tracking your performance like a spreadsheet made of papyrus. Apparently, if you slack off, you literally eat less. Historians say the average laborer's salary was paid mostly in bread and beer, but they rarely mention the performance reviews. Suddenly, you hear a scream. You whip your head around. A young girl is shouting from the canal. Snake! She yells. The workers freeze. You hear splashing. The foreman rushes over with a stick. After a minute of chaos, he holds up a wriggling water snake and tosses it aside. No one claps. Everyone just goes back to work like it's normal. Because it is. You're given a short break at midday, which is more like a grace period than actual rest. You sit under a palm tree and unwrap your lunch. More emmer bread, more beer porridge, a single dried fig. If you're lucky, you chew slowly, trying to savor something, anything, but the bread is so dry it actually crumbles into your lap before reaching your mouth. A nearby farmer is telling a story about a time the Nile flooded too early. He swears it was because a local temple forgot to offer onions to Hapi, the river god. You chuckle softly. He doesn't. Onions are sacred, he says, dead serious. Disrespect them, and your field dies. Historians still argue whether certain offerings like onions or fish were symbolic or genuinely believed to influence nature. Judging by the farmer's face, it's not a debate here, it's law. Your afternoon task changes. You're now hauling bundles of reeds to patch dikes along the canals. The reeds are taller than you and surprisingly sharp. They leave thin cuts on your arms. You try to carry two at a time. Bad idea. You trip over a stone, land in the canal, and soak your only tunic in the silty river water. The older woman snorts and tosses you one of her extra wraps. It smells like pickled garlic and goat hair. You wear it anyway. You look toward the horizon. The pyramids are barely visible in the haze. You'd think they'd be majestic, inspiring, a reminder of the grandeur of Egypt. Instead, they just feel far away, built by people like you, people who had no choice, who spent their days in mud, their nights scratching flea bites, and their lives feeding gods they never met. Your hands are shaking. You try to grip a bundle of reeds, and it slips. You sigh. The sun is sinking, and you're starting to feel cold. Not from the air, but from exhaustion. Someone offers you a clay jug of water. You gulp it, then gag. It's warm and tastes slightly metallic, probably from the copper vessel, but you thank them anyway. Hospitality still exists, even in dust and sweat. As you head home, your legs move without you really telling them to. You're a bundle of reflexes now. Walk, don't stumble, dodge the goat, avoid the priest, smile at the scribe. You're getting the rhythm of Egypt, it just hurts. Back at your home, you peel off the wet tunic and wring it out. Sand pours from the hem. Your mother glances at you and nods approvingly. A good day, she says. You nod back, then collapse onto the straw mat. You hear laughter outside, probably the village boys playing King's Court, a game where they pretend to be pharaohs yelling at servants. You smile faintly. You wanted to be a pharaoh once, then you met the Shadoof, and tomorrow you're told you'll be assisting a stone hauler. You roll over, whispering a single prayer, not to a god, but to your blistered feet. Please don't fall off. The first thing you feel when you wake up is pain. Your shoulders are wrecked. Your lower back feels like someone dropped a limestone slab on it, which is ironic because today that's basically your job. You're assigned to help a local stone hauler, part of a crew that assists with moving construction materials for a new temple expansion. Fun. No easing into the morning today. You're rousted by your cousin, who seems suspiciously energetic. Time to meet the foreman. Wear the strong sandals, he says. You don't have strong sandals. You have the sandals, the ones that frayed yesterday while hauling reeds. You wrap them in linen strips and hope for the best. Your breakfast? You guessed it, bread and beer. But this time, the beer is slightly sour. You consider skipping it, but you'll need every calorie. The stone yard is already buzzing by sunrise. Carts creak, oxen groan, and men shout. A gang of workers is lifting wooden levers beneath a massive limestone block the size of your bed. That block needs to be moved several hundred meters by hand with nothing but sledges, ropes, and your very average biceps. You're handed a rope. Don't let it go slack. The overseer barks. You nod and pray. Pull, heave, pull again. Your feet dig into sand that refuses to cooperate. Someone yells, lift, and you nearly fall forward. The entire crew groans in unison. It's like trying to drag a mountain that hates you. The only comfort? You're not alone. There are at least 20 others, straining beside you, all soaked in sweat, all with the same dead-eyed stare. Historians used to think slaves built the pyramids and temples, but modern archaeology suggests otherwise. Most laborers were conscripted or seasonal workers, like farmers during flood seasons. Still doesn't make the work any easier. Or voluntary. A small boy rushes in with a water jug. You all drink from it in turn. It's warm and tastes faintly of the gourd it's stored in. You don't care. You'd drink from a fish's armpit at this point. Just as you're adjusting your grip, the man beside you slips. The rope snaps taut. You lurch forward and land hard, knees in the sand. The block shifts dangerously on the sledge. Everyone freezes, then slowly it settles back. You're helped to your feet by an older man with only 3 fingers on one hand. You don't ask. Keep the rope tight, he mutters, slack as death. You nod, tight grip, no slack. Hours pass. You chant in rhythm with the others now, a slow, grunt-filled mantra of survival. Ha, ha, pull. The chant is older than language, maybe older than the gods. You pause at midday. Someone brings dates and onions, the kind you've seen used in offerings. You scarf them down like sacred treasures. They burn slightly going down, but at least they're solid food. While you eat, a scribe sits nearby, making records on a tablet. You hear him murmur, third stone, day 5, 80 workers. No fatalities yet. That yet is doing a lot of heavy lifting. You glare at him. He doesn't notice. You resume hauling. Another block. This one smaller, easier. You start to think you're getting the hang of it until someone ahead drops the sled rail and the stone gets stuck in the sand. Now it must be lifted again, repositioned. You all groan in unison, like a choir of despair. The foreman claps his hands. Faster! Pharaoh doesn't wait. Pharaoh, the man whose name will be etched in gold. You, on the other hand, might be remembered as that one who got crushed by the fourth stone. Still, you lift, because not lifting isn't an option. Late in the day, a priest arrives to bless the stones. He waves incense, murmurs prayers, and sprinkles water from a palm cup. You all bow your heads. A few whisper extra prayers of their own. Please don't let it crack. Please don't let me trip. Please let me sleep tonight. Historians debate whether the rituals were more for spiritual safety or worker morale. You're starting to think it's both. The priest pauses by your block. He places a dried flower atop it, murmurs something in Old Egyptian, then looks directly at you. You freeze. This one will hold, he says. Is that good? A compliment? A warning? You pull again. By sunset, the final block is aligned. The crew slumps to the ground like collapsed tents. You lie flat on your back, staring up at the purpling sky. Your hands are blistered. Your thighs quiver like jelly. But the block moved. It's in place. No one died. You survived stoneholing. Barely. Back at home, you soak your feet in a cracked basin. Your mother gives you a salve made from fat and herbs. It smells like ancient sadness. You smear it on anyway. It stings, but numbs the pain a little. You nibble at dinner. You're too tired to chew. Your cousin asks, did it crush anyone? You shake your head. Not yet. The family laughs. You laugh, too, but quietly. Later, as you lie on your mat, your arms throb. Every blink feels like a chore. But you're proud. You didn't let the rope go slack. And you still have all your fingers. For now. You've barely managed to fall asleep when you are yanked back to consciousness by a dripping ceiling and the high pitched squeal of something that definitely shouldn't be living in your wall. Rain? Number in ancient Egypt, it rains about as often as cats sing opera. That sound? Probably the neighbor's goat peeing again through the thatched roof above your bed. You roll onto your side and sigh. Every part of your body protests. You're no longer sure where your limbs end, and the soreness begins. But there's no time for complaints. Today, you're being loaned to the pyramid crew. You groan, not because you don't want to go, but because you know you're not ready. After a quick splash of Nile water to your face, mosquitoes included, and a mouthful of leftover bread so stale it threatens your dental integrity, you shuffle down the road toward the construction site on the edge of the desert. The air is still cool in that cruel, deceptive way, giving you false hope before the furnace of the sun cranks up. As you approach the site, the sheer scale hits you. Massive blocks of limestone sit in neat rows, waiting to be moved. Ramps stretch upward like giant sandy tongues. Workers crawl across the landscape like ants with deadlines. Whips crack, oxen bellow. Dust clouds rise like ghosts from the earth. Your first job, hauling sand to refill the wooden ramps, which constantly collapse under the weight of each dragged stone. You're handed a woven basket with two handles and told run. There's no further instruction, just run. So you do. You scoop hot sand into your basket and haul it up the ramp, pouring it into holes before sprinting back down for more. Over and over. Your knees buckle, your back arches, sweat pours from your scalp and immediately turns into mud along your spine. A boy beside you slips and tumbles down the ramp. He's scraped up, but fine, mostly. He grins as he gets back up. First falls free. He laughs. Second one costs teeth. You don't laugh. Your balance is already questionable. You hear a whistle from above. A huge sled, burdened with a 30-ton block, begins its crawl up the ramp. Everyone steps aside quickly. You do too, instinctively. Because if that thing slips, well, no one's picking you out of the rubble with tweezers. Historians now believe large crews poured water in front of sleds to reduce friction. You see it happening. Men dousing the sandpath, shouting for more water as they drag the block upward, using ropes thicker than your thigh. The logistics are impressive. The danger, constant. Your second task, alignment. You're given a small bronze mallet and told to knock the corner straight. That's it, no other instruction. You stare at a stone block that could probably crush a two-story house and wonder how gently tapping it is supposed to do anything. But you comply. Tap, tap, tap. A foreman walks by and squints at your work. Too soft, he grunts. He takes the mallet from you and slams the block like it insulted his mother. Dust explodes into your face. You cough violently. Learn, he mutters, handing it back. Somewhere in the distance, someone yells about a crack. Another stone, one someone spent days holding and shaping, has split. There's a collective groan. That crew will have to redo the entire process. The shattered stone is left there, a broken monument to frustration. Later, it might become filler or just forgotten entirely. A reminder, even massive efforts can turn to rubble. During a short break, you sit under a linen canopy with a few other younger workers. One older man tells you about his cousin who works at Giza. They found a tomb by accident last week, he says, sealed tight since the Old Kingdom. You ask if they opened it. He grins. Of course, got cursed immediately. Cursed? He leans in. First, scorpions in their beds. Then, food started rotting. Then his beard caught fire. Indoors. You blink. Historians still argue whether curses were real, he adds, waving a piece of dried fish like a philosopher, or just clever deterrents. But that beard? That wasn't an accident. You silently vow never to open anything that's been sealed since the Old Kingdom. Back to work. Now you're on pulley duty, not the sophisticated kind. This is a man-powered counterweight system. You stand in a pit and pull ropes in tandem with five others, hoisting supplies up a ledge. If one person messes up the rhythm, someone above might get crushed by a falling basket of limestone bricks. The system squeals and groans. Your hands are raw. Rope burns line your palms like ancient tattoos. A guy next to you mutters, I miss shed-offs. You want to agree, but don't have the breath to say it. Eventually, the overseer shouts, Enough! The crew collapses onto the sand. You flop down and stare up at the sky, trying to remember what clouds look like. There aren't any here, just the blazing sun, glaring at you like a disapproving boss. A priest arrives at dusk to inspect the day's work. He carries a tray of offering bread and perfume. You watch him walk past you without a glance. His linen robes trail behind, like something out of a myth. He doesn't look tired, not even a little. One of your crew whispers, When I die, I want to come back as a priest. Another replies, You'll come back as a stone. You chuckle, finally. Back home, your skin is caked in layers of dust, sweat, and sandstone. Your shoulders feel detached from your torso. Your hands won't close into fists anymore. Dinner is blessedly quiet. Your family knows not to ask questions tonight. Your father just hands you a bowl of lentils and pats your shoulder. It hurts, but the gesture is kind. You lie on your mat, eyes half lidded, and think, pyramids are beautiful. Just don't ask who really paid the price. The next morning, your body refuses to move. Seriously, it just refuses. Your limbs feel like they've been embalmed, stiff, sore, and wrapped in invisible bandages of pain. You groan as you sit up. Muscles you didn't know existed. are now actively rebelling against your life choices. And yet, here comes your mother, gently nudging you with her foot. Sun's up, time to get moving. No sympathy, not even a how are your ribs? Just the expectation that today will go on because it must, because that's how it works here. Ancient Egypt doesn't wait for your recovery, it schedules your next crisis while you're still limping from the last one. Today, you're assigned to the apothecary's hut, a small side building near the temple where oils, ointments, and strange ideas are prepared. You think, finally, a break, a quiet job, shade, maybe even rest. You're so wrong. The apothecary is an older woman named Senet with eyes like desert glass and hands that move faster than yours, even though she's easily 50 summers older. She greets you without looking up from her work. Grab that gold bladder and mash those figs. Wait, what? You scan the table and spot, yep, a dried goat bladder hanging like a sad balloon. Next to it, a bowl of overripe figs. You start mashing, trying not to ask questions. Best not to know what this particular mixture is for. Sanit finally looks up and squints at your hands. You're doing it wrong. Use your elbows if you're tired. She demonstrates. With elbows. The woman is terrifying. You learn quickly that this job, while shaded, is just as strange as stone hauling. You're surrounded by jars with faded hieroglyph labels, ostrich egg powder, burnt myrrh, fermented mouse wine. She hands you a clay cup with a bubbling gray liquid. Drink. You freeze. What is it? For your aches, she says. And the worms. You have worms, right? You do not drink it. Instead, you shift tasks. She sends you to grind dried beetles into a powder. For fertility, she mutters, also makes decent eyeliner if you're desperate. While grinding, you hear her mutter charms under her breath. Some rhyme, some don't. One involves repeating the word hippopotamus 7 times. You're not sure whether she's a genius or just completely mad. Possibly both. You accidentally sneeze into one of the powder jars. She doesn't notice. You quickly swap it with another. Somewhere, someone is going to get a very ineffective rash remedy. Later, a woman limps in holding her stomach and groaning. Senet grabs a jar of honey, a dried lizard tail, and what you think might be an eagle feather. She mixes them into a poultice and says, apply this, and don't argue with Bastet. You realize half of medicine in ancient Egypt involves hope, half involves honey, and the rest is just stern instructions and a lot of guessing. Historians still debate whether these remedies actually worked or just kept people busy long enough to recover naturally. Either way, you don't envy the patients. You get sent out to collect fresh ingredients, lotus flowers from the canal bank, some black soil near a termite mound, and oddly, a goat's sneeze. You fail to procure that last one. The goat glares at you. You give up. Back at the hut, a minor priest arrives asking for a strength elixir. Senit hands him a small jar and a wooden amulet shaped like a fish. Drink the potion. Wear the fish, she says. Then stop annoying the sun god. He looks bewildered. You're starting to think that's half the cure. You ask her, as casually as possible, if she really believes in the charms. She pauses, then smiles faintly. Doesn't matter if I do. They do. She nods toward the villagers. Belief can be stronger than herbs. That sits with you until she hands you a vial of crocodile urine. For sun rash, she says, you do not ask follow up questions. Your final task for the day is to help seal several jars of medicine, some for childbirth, others for curses, a few for embalming prep. Each jar is tied with string, dipped in wax, and labeled with a symbol. You nearly knock one over. Senet catches it mid fall. If you break that, she warns, I'll have to rebalance your liver. You're not sure if she's joking. Finally, as the sun dips low, she dismisses you. Not terrible, she says. Better than the last boy. He fainted from beetle fumes. You bow deeply and back away. You're honestly not sure whether to thank her or go bathe in vinegar. You stumble home, reeking of herbs, mud, and at least one lizard based sow. Your family sniffs the air when you arrive. Your sister whispers, why do you smell like someone cursed a garden? You lie on your mat, physically less sore than yesterday, but mentally shaken. There are things in that hut you will never forget: that goat bladder, the sneeze quest, the bubbling gray liquid. You wonder if you're stronger now, or just permanently weird. Either way, tomorrow, you're back with the temple servants, and you'd honestly rather face a pyramid block again. You wake up with a strange sensation on your forehead. You swat at it instinctively and sit up, blinking. It's a scarab beetle, big, glossy, and very much alive. It scuttles off your blanket like it owns the place. You watch it go, wondering if that's a bad omen or just Egypt being Egypt. Outside, the sky is still streaked with indigo, but the village is already humming. Today, you've been reassigned again. This time, back to the temple, though thankfully, not for sweeping. Your cousin says you'll be working around the statues and assisting in ritual preparation. You nod, trying not to look nervous. Last time you got too close to a sacred ibis. It pecked your ear. You hurry through a basic wash and chew on half a date for energy. The temple looms larger today, its columns stretching like petrified giants into the warming sky. You step inside the courtyard, where the air changes instantly, cooler but heavier, thick with incense, humidity, and pressure. One of the junior priests hands you a bronze bowl filled with what looks like crushed petals and oil. For Hathor, he says, anoint the base of her statue. Don't spill any. Don't sneeze. Don't look casual. Got it? As you walk toward the inner shrine, you pass between rows of statues. Horus with his falcon eyes, Thoth with his ibis head, Sekhmet with her eternal scowl. You try not to meet their gazes. It's hard. They're made of stone, yes, but in the low flicker of torchlight, they seem to watch. The statue of Hathor stands tall, serene, her cow ears framed by a sun disk. You kneel and dab the oil gently around the base, just like you were shown. Your hand trembles. A single drop lands on your sandal. You freeze. Will she notice? A priest passes behind you and hums approvingly. Maybe you're safe. You don't breathe for another 30 seconds, just in case. Elsewhere, other attendants are preparing offerings: dates, pomegranates, and a small roasted bird. You catch the scent. Your stomach growls audibly. A nearby acolyte smirks. Don't get ideas. The gods don't share. You're then handed a linen cloth soaked in scented water and instructed to polish the arm of the god Ptah. as you gently rub the forearm of a 20-foot statue. You wonder, how does this help anyone? But then you remember what Sinead said yesterday. Belief matters. These rituals aren't just for the gods, they're for the people, to reassure them that the world is ordered, that chaos is kept at bay. You try to believe it too. A crowd begins to form outside the temple's main courtyard. A procession is being prepared. One of the gods is to be carried through the town on a ceremonial bark. You've seen this before. Priests chant, musicians play, and dancers in golden collars move like waves around the platform. But you've never seen it from inside. Suddenly, a junior priest points to you. You assist with the bark poles. Wait, what? Before you can argue, you're fitted into a row of temple workers and handed one of the wooden beams that support the bark. It's stunning. Gold inlay, polished cedar, delicate carvings of winged goddesses. It's also incredibly heavy. The moment you lift it, your shoulders scream in protest, and then the music starts. You move in, step through the temple gates, into the open square. Villagers bow, children throw lotus petals. You try to look reverent, but mostly you're trying not to collapse. One wrong step, and this sacred bark might drop, with you under it. As you march, you pass under banners, inscribed with protective spells. A woman shouts praises to Amun. An old man mutters a private prayer. Somewhere, someone burns incense that smells vaguely of honey and panic. A small child spots you and calls out. He's sweating more than the statue. You are, after what feels like forever. The procession turns back toward the temple. You've made it. No dropped barks, no angry gods, no pecked ears. Yet, back inside, you return to the storeroom to help clean ritual tools. You're handed a curved blade used for cutting offerings. It's dull and spotted with what might be old blood or pomegranate juice. You don't ask. While scrubbing, you hear two priests debating something in hushed tones near the entrance. You eavesdrop casually. They're arguing about the correct alignment of the god's gaze. One believes the statue of Osiris should face north. The other insists on west. Historians still argue, one says, but the stars don't lie. You wonder what happens if they can't agree. Maybe someone moves the statue overnight. Maybe no one notices. Maybe the god does. You finish scrubbing the blade and place it back gently. You realize this is the first tool you've handled in days that didn't break your body, only your nerves. As the sun dips low, the temple bells ring once more, signaling the end of ceremony. You're excused with a tired nod from one of the high priests. You bow low, stepping backward, the proper number of steps before turning. Outside, the sky glows deep red, casting the statues in a warm, eerie light. You glance back just once. The stone eyes of Horus catch the last gleam of sun. You swear they shimmer. Back at home, you try to explain to your cousin what happened. He listens wide-eyed. You carried the bark, he says. That means you're holy now. Or cursed. Depends who you ask. You lie down, breathing slowly. You're too tired to care. Holy, cursed, sweaty, probably all three. By now, waking up hurts less because you're used to it, not because anything is healed. Your body's just accepted that life is one long, painful routine. under the Egyptian sun. But this morning, something different is bothering you. It's your stomach and your bowels, and a sensation that can only be described as imminent doom. You roll off the mat and clutch your gut. Whatever you ate yesterday, maybe the half rotten fig or the probably not supposed to be sniffed lizard paste, has decided to revolt. You rush outside before anything dramatic happens indoors. And that's when you're faced with another harsh truth of ancient Egypt. Toileting is not a private affair. The public latrines are located a short walk away, near the rear wall of the village, surrounded by makeshift fences woven from reeds. There's no lock, no door, no such thing as personal space, just a stone bench with carved holes and a trench underneath, shared by everyone, including that guy who always wants to chat while you're mid emergency. You get there and wait your turn, behind a young boy, an old man, and what appears to be someone in full ceremonial makeup holding a chicken. You don't ask. Finally, it's your moment. You shuffle onto the slab, hovering awkwardly. The heat, the smell, the flies. Oh, Ra, the flies make it feel like a form of penance. You try to focus, breathe, don't look down, don't make eye contact with anyone. Just finish. The trench beneath is serviced every few days by someone, even lower on the social ladder than you. A man known as the night jar collector. You've seen him. He whistles as he works, carrying human waste in jars to be composted or, in some cursed cases, used in fertility rituals. You make a mental note: never eat vegetables from the west field. When you emerge, your legs wobble. You feel lighter, yes, but also vaguely traumatized. And you can't shake the buzzing in your ears, not from stress, but from actual flies. One may have followed you out. Back home, your mother hands you a sprig of mint to chew on. For the smell, she says, not your breath, your body. It's clear your condition has been noticed. You clean up and are immediately called to help at the grain store, where you're tasked with inspecting sacks for pests. You walk in and are nearly bowled over by the stench: moldy grain, sour beer, and the unmistakable tang of rat pee. You breathe through your mouth. You start sifting through the grain with a wooden paddle. You're told to look for signs of weevil damage, rodent droppings, or anything that moves and shouldn't. It's like a game of Where's Waldo? But instead of finding a friendly striped guy, you find larvae. A cat slinks by, eyeing the room like it owns it. In many ways, it does. Cats are sacred here, protectors of the home, symbols of Bastet, and also the best rat catchers in the business. This one gives you a once over and promptly settles on a sack you were about to inspect. You leave it be. A scribe enters to tally the contents. He dips a stick into the grain and examines it like a wine critic sniffing a cork. Too much sand, he says, grimacing. You wonder how he can tell. To you, it just looks like beige. Beige that crunches in your teeth. He marks the tally on a scroll and nods. This one's fine. Just don't let the priest take any until we chant over it. You blink. Chant? He leans closer. Every 10th sack gets a blessing. Keeps it from going sour. You want to ask how words can keep mold away, but after the crocodile dung sunscreen, you've learned to let things go. Lunch break comes with a surprise: onion stew. It smells sharp, but tastes surprisingly decent. You soak a chunk of bread in it and feel, for a brief moment, almost human again. And then the tax collector arrives. He's tall, thin, with the kind of face that looks permanently unimpressed. He carries a reed pen, a tablet, and a frown. Grain rations, he says. Anyone caught withholding must show their scarab seal. You freeze, you don't have a scarab seal. You're not important enough for one. Those are tokens granted by temple officials or scribes to mark status, tax exemptions, or permission to not get beaten over a miscount. He eyes you. Your quota? You stammer something vague. He narrows his eyes, then shrugs. Add him to the labor draft. Wait, what? A moment later, a boy slaps a wax tablet into your hand with your name scrolled onto a list. Congratulations, you're now on extra canal maintenance duty next week. You look up. Why me? The boy shrugs. You looked slow and your hair's crooked. What does that even mean? You spend the rest of the afternoon hauling newly tallied sacks toward the outer wall for temple redistribution. The sacks are heavy, the sun is back with a vengeance, and your tunic is soaked through. Again, but your mind is elsewhere, on that tax collector's list. You wonder how many people have ended up there. You wonder if anyone ever gets off it. At sunset, a brief dust storm whips through the village. You take cover near a cart while fine particles coat your skin, your teeth, your soul. A priest walking by mutters a blessing and keeps going. His robes don't even flutter. You, meanwhile, look like a walking clay sculpture. Back home, your father listens quietly as you explain the labor draft. He nods slowly, then offers you his worn scarab seal. Mine's expired, he says, but maybe they won't check. You take it, hard thudding. It's shaped like a beetle and still warm from his hand. You close your fingers around it. Maybe it'll help, maybe it won't. But in a world where chants bless grain and lizards cure cramps, even a fake seal can carry weight. As you lie down that night, your stomach settles, barely, but your nerves still buzzing. You wake to the low, rhythmic hum of chanting. At first, you think you're dreaming, but no, the sound is real, echoing from the temple courtyard, just beyond your home's eastern wall. The voices are deep, slow, and hypnotic. You sit up, still holding your father's scarab seal in your hand like a talisman. The morning air smells faintly of smoke and perfume. Something important is happening today. When you step outside, the village feels different. People move quickly, heads are bowed, no one's yelling. Even the chickens are weirdly silent. You glance toward the temple and see the source. Priests in full ceremonial dress, their white linen robes pressed and gleaming, are setting up for some kind of astral observance. Your cousin passes you, wide eyed. It's the star readers, he whispers. They're charting Sirius. Ah, that explains the gravity. Sirius, the dog star, was crucial in Egyptian cosmology. Its appearance in the pre dawn sky marked the start of the new year and, more importantly, the coming of the Nile flood. A good flood meant fertile soil, a bad one meant famine. So when Sirius showed up, everybody paid attention. You're sent to assist in the outer temple court, not because you're useful, but because your face is respectfully quiet. That's a compliment, apparently. A priest hands you a polished obsidian mirror, shaped like a teardrop. and instructs you to hold it at a specific angle toward the eastern horizon. You try your best not to squint or tremble. The mirror is used to reflect the rising star, part of an elaborate ritual meant to catch the first light of Sirius as it breaks across the dawn. As you stand there, arms aching from holding the mirror aloft, a cold breeze brushes past. A moment later, there's a collective gasp. A pinprick of light appears in the sky, just above the dunes. Sirius has risen. The priests begin a louder chant. Offerings are brought forward: bowls of honey, slices of melon, tiny papyrus, boats carrying scraps of meat, and precious oil. You watch, awed, everyone's faces are turned toward the light, and then, of course, someone ruins the moment. A donkey breaks loose near the southern gate and barrels through the sand with a wild look in its eye, scattering baskets of dried onions and nearly knocking over one of the chant leaders. The crowd panics. You step backward and promptly trip into a small altar of lotus blossoms. Petals go flying. You land with a thud. Several heads turn. One priest stares directly at you. You freeze. But instead of punishment, he walks over and helps you up. It happens, he mutters, then more sharply, "Clean it up." You do, petal by petal. One lands in your mouth. You chew it out of pure spite. Later, as the crowd disperses, you're pulled aside by a junior priest named Nefer. He's younger than most of the others, probably just a few years older than you. He smiles faintly. "Ever seen a sky reading?" You shake your head. He gestures toward the temple's astronomy chamber, really just a shaded platform, lined with star maps painted on plaster walls, showing constellations in golden ink and soot. "Want to learn something weird?" You nod. You're already sore and confused. Might as well add weird to the list. Nefer explains that while everyone watches the stars for divine messages, not all priests agree on their meaning. Some believe the gods speak through the heavens, he says. Others think it's just numbers, patterns, math pretending to be mystery. He shows you a long strip of parchment. On it are dots and lines, early calculations of lunar cycles. Historians still argue whether Egyptian star charts were for prophecy, he says, or farming. Maybe both. He leans in. Or maybe neither. That thought lingers with you for the rest of the day. You're then tasked with helping organize temple donations. It's not as mystical as it sounds. It means counting sacks of barley, weighing small bricks of incense, and trying to keep track of live geese that refuse to stay in the donation pen. One escapes. You chase it halfway across the courtyard before it leads you directly into the path of a noble woman on a visit from Memphis. Her sandals cost more than your house. The goose honks, she gasps, and her attendants close in. You freeze. "I apologize, noble lady," you say quickly, bowing low. She arches one perfect eyebrow. "Is that your goose?" "Technically, number, but also, sort of." She laughs. "Very well, but next time, wear better sandals." Then she turns and disappears into the temple's inner gate, her train carried by three perfectly silent boys in golden collars. You exhale. By sunset, your hands smell like barley, goose feathers, and guilt. You're allowed to leave just before the night rituals begin. As you exit, the sky burns orange, then fades into a deep purple speckled with stars. Sirius is there now, bright and calm. At home, your mother listens as you tell her about the mirror, the sky readers, the goose incident. She laughs at the last part and shakes her head. If the gods didn't want drama, she says, they wouldn't have given us animals. You lie down and stare up at the thatched ceiling. For the first time in a long while, your heart feels quiet. Despite the chaos, you'd witnessed something ancient, something big. You'd stood beneath the stars that guided generations, and all it took was one goose to nearly get you smited. Classic. You wake in total darkness, heart pounding, not because of a nightmare, though you've had plenty of those, but because something just skittered across your hand. You sit up slowly, fumbling for the clay oil lamp beside your mat. Your fingers find the flint. A few strikes, a weak flame, and the room glows just enough to reveal tonight's honored guest, a fat, glossy scorpion nestled cozily near your foot. You don't scream, you want to, but you remember what happened last time your cousin screamed at night. Half the village came running with torches and sandals. Instead, you quietly slide the lamp forward and nudge the creature with a stick. It doesn't move. You nudge harder. It raises its tail. Nope. You scramble backward and shout, Scorpion! Now you've done it. The house stirs. Your mother enters with a jar, mutters a charm under her breath, and swiftly traps the thing with the grace of someone who's done this a lot. She slides a shard of pottery beneath it and flips the jar upright. Second one this week, she grumbles. They like the warm corners. Good to know. You spend the rest of the night wide-eyed and tightly bundled in your blanket, toes tucked so far in they may never come out again. At sunrise, your cousin announced the next horror. Thatching duty. You follow him through the quiet village to a partially collapsed home near the southern wall. The roof is caved in, and your job is to help rebuild it with a bundle of reeds and hope. Thatching in ancient Egypt is not the romantic kind you see on travel brochures. It's itchy, it's sharp. It involves climbing onto wobbly scaffolding, with arms full of dry brittle weeds, tying them tightly with fraying rope made of palm fiber. You're sweating 5 minutes in, 10 minutes in, your forearm is bleeding. 15 minutes in, you're rethinking every decision that led to this life. The man leading the work is cheerful in the way only someone covered in a sunburn and splinters can be. Watch the knots, he says. If one comes loose, the whole thing falls. He gestures upward. With you on it. Great. While working, you hear stories from the others. How someone once slipped while thatching and landed on a pile of pottery. How another claimed to have seen a spirit walk across an unfinished roof. Spirits don't like holes, one man says. They sneak in through gaps. You nod slowly. You're now committed to overknotting everything, just to be sure. By midday, your arms feel like boiled rope. You descend for a break, wiping sweat from your eyes with the least dusty part of your tunic. You're handed boiled lentils and dried fish wrapped in a leaf. You eat it sitting under a narrow strip of shade while fending off a cat with very persistent eyes. Then comes part two of the day's torment. Moving bricks. You thought hauling limestone was bad. Try clay bricks. They're deceptively light for the first three. By the fourth, you realize your palms are raw. By the 10th, you swear the bricks are multiplying in your arms. You stack them under the sun, one by one, forming a replacement wall section for the newly thatched roof. An older man shows you how to smear mud mixed with straw to hold the bricks in place. This one's for keeping scorpions out, he says, pressing it hard into the crevices. Does it work? He shrugs. Sometimes. As you work, your foot catches on a loose tool. You stumble, catch yourself, and nearly drop an entire stack. Careful, someone warns. That's how curses start. You blink. Excuse me? Another worker explains. In Egypt, breaking a wall during repairs, especially if that wall has a shrine or offering, was seen as a spiritual risk. Angry spirits live in corners, he says casually, especially when ignored. You glance nervously at the wall. You'd really like fewer spiritual residents right now. As the sun dips lower, you're reassigned one last task, cleaning the water channel. You trudge over, exhausted, to where a small canal trickles past the edge of the neighborhood. Your job? Pull out debris, dead leaves, mud clumps, occasionally a dead frog. Once, a partially chewed sandal. The water is murky. It smells faintly of algae, sweat, and long forgotten prayers. You squat near the bank, hands submerged, when something brushes your finger. You yank your hand out with a shriek and tumble backward into the mud. It's just a stick. Probably. You're not taking chances. Back home, your family tries not to laugh as you enter, dripping canal sludge, smelling like the floor of a fish market. Your sister hands you a fresh wrap and says, "You always bring the day home with you." You rinse off as best you can, soaking your feet in a bucket of salty water your mother prepares. She drops in a pinch of herbs to ward off ankle demons. You nod. You've learned not to argue. As you lie down, eyes heavy, muscles hollowed out, you glance toward the wall where the scorpion had visited. It's empty now, but you still tuck your feet in, just in case. Sleep comes, slow, dreamless, and twitchy. You're halfway through your first full week. You still have both eyes, all your fingers, and most of your dignity. That counts as a win. You wake to a smell that is impossible to ignore. It's not your blanket, though that has long since adopted the scent of sweat, clay, and general suffering. It's something worse, thick, warm, pungent, a stew of sun-baked fish guts, rotting reeds, damp hay, and the occasional whiff of unwashed humanity. You're not dying. You're just in ancient Egypt at midday. Today's assignment is deceptively simple. Deliver grain to the granary. You think, how bad could that be? Grain, baskets, done. But as soon as you step outside, it hits you harder than the heat ever could. The odors, everyone stinks. You stink. The ground stinks. Even the air itself smells tired. You're starting to understand why incense is burned so often. It's less about worship and more about survival. The first scent to slap your face is that of dried fish, laid out on woven mats in the sun. The scales shimmer like coins, but the smell, a nasal assault. Your eyes water as you pass, trying not to gag. Flies buzz in thick clouds over the rows, undeterred by the waving arms of a bored fishmonger. Not 5 steps later, you're assaulted by cow dung. freshly spread near the canal as fertilizer, is not just a smell, it's a presence wrapping around your face like a damp blanket. The farmer responsible gives you a thumbs up as you hold your breath and scurry past. Then come the reeds, bundles of them, harvested from the river bank and now rotting slowly in the heat. Their purpose? Thatched mats, their side effect? Smelling like moldy armpit water. And you haven't even reached the granary yet. When you arrive, the foreman points to a series of large clay silos, each taller than a man and sealed with mud. Your job is to carry baskets of freshly threshed grain and dump them inside. Simple in theory, in practice, not so much. You hoist your first basket and immediately spill half the contents on your foot. A nearby assistant gives you a look of pure disdain. That's for temple grain, he hisses. You spill again, we dock your share. You nod, swallowing a mix of fear and barley husks. Each basket weighs more than it looks, partly due to hidden moisture, partly due to the fact that you're fairly certain the baskets themselves are made of woven iron. With every trip, you inhale more dust. It coats your throat, your tongue, your brain, and the smell, it follows you. A grain silo, once opened, releases a wave of hot, earthy scent, like sour bread dough left too long in the sun. One silo is infested with tiny beetles. You watch them scatter as grain pours in. The assistant shrugs, adds protein. Halfway through the task, you're dripping sweat. It pulls in your shoes. Your back aches. Your nose has stopped registering smell. It's given up. Then the worst happens. You step around a corner, trying to avoid a donkey cart, and are ambushed by a wind shift. The full concoction of Egyptian midday funk hits you at once. Fish, dung, sweat, fermenting fruit, stale beer, and what may or may not be a dead cat, somewhere in the bushes. Your stomach lurches, you gag, you vomit, quietly behind a stack of baskets, and wipe your mouth on the edge of your tunic, which now smells like everything you've just expelled. Congratulations, you're officially baptized in the stink of survival. After recovering, you're reassigned to escort a small shipment of barley to the temple. It's a short walk, but you must pass through the market square, and that brings a whole new level of olfactory horror. The market smells like fermented date wine, roasting goat, human feet, overripe melons, crushed garlic, and one extremely enthusiastic man selling onions from a cart with a broken axle. He sees you. You look like you need onions. You shake your head. He insists. They keep away the bad spirits and the worst smells. He's not wrong. You buy one out of desperation, bite into it raw, and feel your sinuses clear like the Nile in flood season. For a moment, the world smells like sharp, clean spice. Then you burp. Now the world smells like onion-flavored regret. At the temple, the priests accept your barley, nodding with faint approval. One of them comments, "You reek of labor." You mumble, "Thank you." He smiles, not a compliment. You make your way home through a thick haze of smoke from a nearby bread kiln. The air smells burnt, but after today, it's almost pleasant. Your cousin meets you at the doorway. You smell like a fisherman's dream gone wrong. You stare at him. He hands you a bucket and a rag. Wash outside, no offense, none taken. You scrub your arms with lemon scented herbs. They help. A little, you dunk your head in the basin, letting the cool water dull the day's misery. Later that evening, your family eats dinner quietly. No one asks how your day went. They can probably guess from the visible crust of grain dust and dried sweat on your neck. As you lie down, you smell your blanket. It smells like you, and that is not a good thing. Still, your eyes close, your stomach settles, your nose, mercifully, goes numb, and for a few short hours, the world is quiet. You wake to the sound of drums, low, steady, almost like a heartbeat echoing through the village. That's never a good sign. Your cousin bursts in, wide eyed and breathless. Festival, he says. Big one. You've been picked. You sit up confused. Picked for what? He shrugs. You'll see. That's ancient Egypt, for don't ask or you'll regret it. You throw on your least disgusting tunic and follow him through the village. The streets are already bustling with activity. Children paint their faces with ochre and charcoal. Women carry baskets of flowers, dried fruits, and colored sashes. The air is thick with smoke from incense carts and the smell of baking honey cakes. It would almost be festive if your gut didn't say run. You reach the temple plaza and are immediately surrounded by a group of priests. One steps forward, holding a small clay jar and an overly satisfied expression. You've been selected, he says, for a symbolic sacrifice. Excuse me? He explains that during certain religious festivals, it's customary for villagers to represent various elements in sacred dramas: life, death, rebirth, harvest, storm, fertility, etc. And today you're playing the sacrificial offering. Symbolic, he repeats, as if that makes it better. Before you can object, you're whisked behind a linen screen where attendants strip you down and begin painting your entire body in layers of red ochre. One daubs your cheeks, another paints a sun disk on your chest. You feel like a badly drawn wall carving. Then come the garlands, flowers strung into itchy necklaces that attract bees. You're handed a wooden staff adorned with feathers and a small carved falcon head. What do I do, you ask? Walk slowly, someone replies. Look solemn and don't sneeze on the altar. Great. Soon a procession forms. Priests chant, musicians drum, dancers swirl in cloud like linen. You're placed at the center, on a wooden platform, surrounded by baskets of grain and jugs of beer. Children toss petals at your feet. You feel like a saint, a king, and a goat all at once. The ceremony moves through the village, with onlookers bowing as you pass. It's peaceful until you spot the altar. It's decorated beautifully with garlands, golden symbols, and a large stone slab that looks suspiciously like something you shouldn't lie on. A voice booms from the temple steps. The offering approaches. You try to look solemn. Your stomach tries to leave your body. At the altar, you're guided to kneel. A priest steps forward, raises a small knife, decorative, you hope, and recites a long, booming passage in formal language. that includes phrases like cleanse the land and renew the divine cycle. At one point, he places his hand on your head and says, may this vessel carry the sins of the people. Wait, what? You start to panic a little. You catch eyes with another villager who gives you a thumbs up, like this is normal. You're not reassured. Then the priest declares, let the gods accept this gift, purified and returned. And with that, he pours an entire jug of cold river water over your head. You gasp, soaked, dripping, red paint streaking down your face. The crowd cheers. You've been symbolically drowned, apparently. The village is now spiritually refreshed. Congratulations. You're quickly ushered aside as the next phase of the ritual begins. Actual sacrifices. Not people, think Ra, but geese, papyrus dolls, and small clay figures representing negative forces. They're placed in a basket, set afloat down a canal, and pushed off with ceremonial sticks. You watch them drift, relieved to still have your internal organs. A priest pats your shoulder. Well done, he says. You're lucky. Last year the offering was a goat, and it wasn't symbolic. You're handed a towel and sent to a smaller shrine area to change. Your wet tunic clings like it's punishing you for existing. You wring it out and try to scrub the red paint off with a wet cloth. It mostly smears. Afterward, you're invited, honored, even, to sit near the elders during the communal meal. It's a spread of lentils, figs, roasted fish, flatbread, and beer thicker than porridge. Despite your earlier trauma, you eat and eat and eat because no one sacrificed the food. Later, children reenact the ceremony. Using dolls, one small boy parades around wearing a red tunic and declaring, I cleanse the land, I smell like fish. You smile faintly. As the sun lowers, a group of musicians play flutes and hand drums, creating a lullaby of rhythm and melody. You sit near the canal and watch the sacrificial dolls bob gently down the water. It's peaceful, almost holy, until a goat tries to eat one. The doll tips, the goat tips, the goat falls in. Chaos erupts. You help fish the animal out, which earns you more applause and, somehow, another flower necklace. You've had enough flowers for one lifetime. That night, your cousin teases you. You were glowing up there. Might start a religion around you. You mumble, only if it involves naps. You lie down on your mat, still damp, still blotchy red. You smell like river water and roasted barley, but you're alive, symbolically cleansed, and very, very sleepy. The next morning, your nose twitches, not from a smell this time, but from papyrus dust. You wake to find your cousin shaking you gently. You've been summoned, he whispers, to the scribe's house. You blink. Why? He grins. You broke something important. Your stomach sinks. It takes a moment for your brain to recall. A few days ago, while helping unload temple supplies, you'd brushed past a pile of scrolls and sent one tumbling. It had snapped at the spindle and crumpled into a papery mess. You tried to hide it under another scroll and walked away. Apparently, you weren't sneaky enough. Now you find yourself standing in the entryway of the local scribe's quarters, barefoot and sweating more from fear than heat. Scribes are powerful. They can read. They can write. They record taxes, prayers, births, deaths, and complaints. Inside the walls are lined with shelves packed with tightly rolled scrolls, clay tablets, ink pots, and tiny reed pens. It's quieter than a tomb and twice as intimidating. The scribe is an older man named Menka, with ink stained fingers and eyebrows that could smother small animals. He's seated cross legged, his robe immaculate. He doesn't look up. You touch the scroll? You nod. You damage the scroll? You nod again. He finally looks up. You hit a scroll? You nod one more time, then whisper, "Sorry." He sighs deeply, as if the breath came from a previous lifetime. Then he gestures to the wall. "Fetch the papyrus. You'll learn how to make more." Wait, what? That's how you find yourself hauled off to the scribe workshop, part storeroom, part punishment chamber, where you'll be spending the day manufacturing papyrus, like a disgraced apprentice. Your first lesson: papyrus is not paper, it's tougher, more fibrous, and considerably more labor intensive. You start by slicing long stalks of the plant into thin strips. These are soaked in Nile water, which at this point feels like it's soaking you, and then laid out in crisscross patterns on a smooth board. "Now," says the instructor, a younger scribe with zero patience, "you pound. With a heavy stone, you begin pressing and smacking the pulp until the juices bind it together. It's messy, it's sticky, it smells faintly of river mud and cucumbers. And that's just step one. Once flattened, the sheet is left to dry under the sun and guarded fiercely from goats, chickens, and neighborhood children who see blank papyrus as an invitation to draw inappropriate animals. While waiting for your sheet to dry, you're handed a dull reed pen and told to practice hieroglyphs in mud. At first, it's fun, like doodling, but then you realize how complicated it is. One mark can mean fish, another means mouth, a slightly longer version means gossip. You accidentally write rotten priest when trying to spell bread. An older apprentice laughs. "Careful! Insult the gods, and they turn your words into frogs." You believe him. After hours of sketching and pounding reeds, you are led back to Menka the scribe, who now seems slightly less furious. He waves you over. "Want to try copying a real scroll?" he asks, sliding one in front of you. It's beautiful. Lines of crisp ink in elegant columns, tiny images of birds, legs, baskets, and eyes. You nod. He hands you a fresh reed pen and a pot of black ink. You dip too far. The tip splashes. A giant ink blot spreads across the papyrus. He blinks slowly. "Interesting technique." You die a little inside. "Artistic freedom," you whisper. Somehow that makes him chuckle. "You'll never be a scribe," he says, "but maybe you'll learn not to hide things under my scrolls." He sends you to the back room, where broken tablets and ruined inkpots are kept. Your task? Organize them by category of failure. You find papyrus that was eaten by mice, papyrus melted by rain, papyrus with unauthorized poetry, written in the margins, one sheet, depicting what appears to be two cats dancing under the moon. You stare at that last one, longer than you should. As the sun lowers, Menka calls you back and places something in your palm. It's a small shard of clay, with your name etched into it. "Your handwriting's terrible," he says, "but you have a decent face." You're not sure if that's a compliment or a diagnosis. He waves you off. You thank him quietly and back away like someone exiting a royal chamber. Back home, your cousin pounces. "Did he curse you?" You shake your head. "Did you cry?" You hesitate. He howls with laughter. That night, Your hands are stained with ink. Your back aches from pounding reeds, and your tunic has a suspicious blotch you suspect is permanent. But you also learn something: how fragile knowledge can be. One slip of the hand, one missing scroll, and an entire story could vanish. You tuck the clay shard under your mat, a souvenir of survival. The day begins with chicken feet. No, not for breakfast. They're being buried under your sleeping mat. You wake up mid chant. Senet, the old apothecary, is in your doorway, waving a small incense burner. Your mother watches silently. Your cousin tries not to laugh. What's going on? You mumble, still groggy. Senet squints at you, like you've asked the most obvious question in Egypt. Your dreams, they've been troubled. Yes? You blink. I guess. She nods gravely. There is energy in this house, unbalanced. You stepped in the path of a sick goose during the festival, and now its spirit follows you. You vaguely remember that goose. You also vaguely remember it biting a priest. You're not sure it was sick, just angry. Senet continues. We must rebalance your energy with charms and chicken parts. Of course, you're too tired to object. She mutters something about bestel and balance, and begins sprinkling powdered fennel across the floor. Then she ties a small linen pouch around your wrist. It smells like garlic and disappointment. Once the rituals are stabilized, she leaves in a cloud of smoke and vague threats. Your cousin pats your shoulder. Could have been worse. She used to throw goat teeth. You nod, still half asleep, and shuffle out the door. Your assignment today? Helping the village healer. Different from Senet. This healer is more practical, more tired, and far less theatrical. His name is Beck, and he greets you with a grumble and a bloody cloth. Hold this, he says. You do? You instantly regret it. Beck's hut smells like herbs, sweat, and that sharp iron scent that only comes from people being slightly too alive. You're not 5 minutes in when a man stumbles in with a cracked toe and a mouth full of prayers. Beck inspects the wound, mutters, "Third this week," and begins wrapping it with strips of linen soaked in beer and honey. You blink. That's medicine? He nods. Fermented grain is good for killing the rot. Honey keeps the wound wet, but not too wet. It's smarter than it looks. You help him grind herbs in a stone bowl, mostly cumin, garlic, and something that looks like crushed beetles. For stomach worms, Beck says, tastes worse than worms, works better. Another patient arrives, this one complaining of a swollen eye. Beck examines it, snorts, and hands you a warm brick. For pressing. You hesitate. Not on your eye, he sighs. Theirs. Right. You press the brick gently. The patient groans. Pain means it's working, Beck mutters, tying a reed band around the man's head and whispering what sounds like a grocery list, but might be a protective spell. Between visitors, Beck explains that healers and priests don't always get along. Priests rely on gods, he says. I rely on what actually stops the bleeding. He's not wrong. You begin sorting his tools: stone knives, bone needles, obsidian blades used for lancing infections. They all look terrifying. Why not use bronze? You ask. Too soft, he replies, and expensive. Stone never lies. That's a phrase you don't forget. You assist in preparing sleeping draughts, a mix of poppy, water, and palm wine. He warns you too much and they don't wake up, too little and they start singing halfway through the night. You carefully measure the mixture. By midday, you're more comfortable around Beck's tools than your own sandals. You've wrapped 4 wounds, carried out 2 bowls of vomit, and fetched a sick cat for someone convinced it had sad dreams. The cat scratches you. Now you need Beck's help. He washes the wound with vinegar, wraps your wrist, and hands you a roasted fig. What's this for? You ask. Comfort, he grunts. You eat it. It's delicious. That afternoon, Senet returns. She brings a basket of dried frogs and hands one to Beck. For the bad ear, she says. He looks unimpressed. I have ginger for that, he replies flatly. She huffs and leaves. You raise an eyebrow. Are you two enemies? Rivals, he says. She believes in spirits. I believe in boils. Later, you're sent to deliver medicine to a nearby farmer, a man who recently fell from a date palm. His back is bent, but his pride is intact. He tells you that the real pain is not the fall, but his wife's constant reminders. You nod sympathetically. As you return to Beck's hut, you overhear a debate between 2 temple scribes just outside the walls. They're arguing about whether dream interpretation should be medical or spiritual. One insists that nightmares indicate illness in the liver, the other believes it's messages from the underworld. Historians still argue. One says, but if a goose speaks in your sleep, it's definitely a curse. You shiver slightly. That dream goose from 2 nights ago is starting to make sense. At sunset, Beck dismisses you. He nods, says you didn't faint. Good enough. You head home with a pouch of poppy leaves in your pocket and a new appreciation for garlic. Your mother greets you with a plate of flat bread and lentils. She eyes your bandaged wrist and simply says, better than a broken toe. Your cousin asks, did Senit come back? You nod. Left a frog. He whistles. She likes you. That night, you lie down gently, wrist aching, brain buzzing. Beneath your mat, you feel the bump of the buried chicken foot. You smile. Maybe it's working. The sun barely kisses the horizon when you're already elbow deep in bartering drama. Today, you've been asked, no, volunteered, to assist your cousin at the village market, where the goal is to trade a basket of surplus lentils for something more exciting, like dates or figs, or if you get very lucky, soft sandals that don't chew your feet. The market is loud, fast, and smells like fermented ambition. It's a maze of color and shouting, stalls made from palm leaves and rough cloth, vendors balancing fish on their heads, baskets overflowing with onions, cloth, and mysterious brown lumps that you hope are food. Your cousin hands you the basket and disappears immediately, muttering something about chasing down a sandal merchant. You're left clutching 20 handfuls of lentils, already attracting flies and suspicious stares. You step up to a merchant selling figs. He's ancient, leathery, and chewing something that might be bark. How many? You ask, holding up the basket. He eyes it, then squints at you. Fake lentils. You blink. They're real. He pinches one. Too dry. You watered them down, didn't you? You definitely didn't. He waves you off. No trade. You try again, this time at a spice stand. The woman there smells like turmeric and control. Barley? She asks. Lentils? You reply. She grimaces. Useless for charm making. You move to a man selling dried fish. He grins widely, revealing precisely one tooth. You offer the basket. He offers you a copper ring that may or may not be a bent spoon. You decline. Then, finally, you meet a man selling date cakes. His cart is balanced on a broken wheel. He looks exhausted. You smile. He frowns. You offer your basket. He picks through it silently, removes one lentil, bites it, nods. Two cakes, he says. You hesitate. Three cakes if you throw in the cloth bag. You do. You walk away with three warm date cakes and the satisfaction of a successful trade. Sort of. Then, two stalls down, someone shouts, That copper ring is fake. You turn, it's the fish seller. He's yelling at a small child who just realized she traded her hair comb for what may be an old nail. Chaos unfolds. The spice woman laughs. The bark chewing fig seller mutters something about curses. Someone's goat eats someone else's onions. And then the market enforcer arrives. Yes, even the ancient Egyptians had market patrols, usually temple appointed, mostly bored, and deeply in love with shouting. He's tall, carries a notched stick, and wears a sash that says balance in hieroglyphs. He spots you. You, did you sell that fake ring? Your hands go up. I traded lentils. He pauses, eyes your cakes, then mutters, Careful next time. If you get caught cheating, it's a fine, or lashes, or both. You nod a little too eagerly. I'm innocent. Promise he moves on. You find your cousin at a sandal stall, trying on mismatched pairs like a celebrity, with too many options. He eyes your cakes and grins. Success? You hand him one. He sniffs it, nods, and promptly eats half in one bite. Then he spots something shiny at another stall and vanishes again. Alone once more, you wander through the stalls and realize something. You're actually learning how this economy of trade and charm works. It's not just what you offer, it's how you carry yourself, the tone of your voice, the look in your eye, the confidence in your lentils. Near the edge of the market, you notice an old woman selling small charms carved from bone. She waves you over. You have good energy, she says. You've never heard that before. She hands you a small carved scarab. This one's for merchants. Brings luck. You fumble for a payment, but she shakes her head. Already paid. I saw how you handled the fish man. You walk away, stunned. A free gift. In Egypt, historians often debate how much barter versus coin trade was used in villages like yours. But one thing they agree on: reputation mattered. A good trade could mean more than a good harvest. Back home, you proudly show the remaining date cakes to your mother. She eyes the missing cloth bag and says nothing, just hands you water and gently removes a lentil from your hair. Better than yesterday, she says. That night, your cousin wants to play Market Master, a made up game where you pretend to haggle with each other using stones and bones. You win every round. Even your fake ring beats his imaginary linen wrap. You go to sleep with a full belly, a sticky hand from cake crumbs, and a tiny carved scarab tucked under your pillow. And for the first time in many nights, you dream of winning. You're woken by shouting. Not the usual farmyard chaos or cousin related mischief, but panicked yelling from multiple voices. Coming from the riverbank, you bolt upright and sprint outside, heart pounding. The Nile is glowing orange in the early morning sun, and people are already gathered near the shore, pointing and murmuring. Someone grabs your shoulder. Don't go near the water. It's the hippo. You freeze. There are few things in ancient Egypt more terrifying than a hippopotamus, not because they're large and clumsy, but because they're large and fast, territorial, and capable of biting a boat in half. And they're sacred, sort of, because of their connection to Taweret, the protective goddess of childbirth, who's often depicted as a pregnant hippo. But even gods can bite. You edge closer to the crowd. Someone whispers that the hippo crushed a fishing boat near the reeds and sent two boys swimming for their lives. One still shaking beside the fire, eyes wide, his tunic half shredded and still soaked. You're handed a spear. You stare at it. Why me? A neighbor shrugs. You're tall. You can scream loud. That counts. Before you can protest, a patrol of 5 men forms. You're drafted instantly. Your mission: drive the hippo away from the shallows before it wanders into the irrigation canals and ruins weeks of crop work, or worse, mauls someone else. You move cautiously through the muddy river trail, flanked by thick reeds, heart hammering like a festival drum. The spear feels useless, more like a pointy suggestion than a weapon. A priest walks with you, muttering protective verses and waving incense over the water. Taweret guide us, he whispers, but don't take offense if we poke your sacred form in the nose. You don't laugh, no one does. And then you see it, a huge, slate gray shape shifting between the lilies. Its eyes break the surface, then its ears twitch, it snorts, it's close, and it's watching. Everyone freezes. You're told to clap and shout, not to attack, just to make noise and convince the beast to swim elsewhere. You do, it doesn't work. The hippo suddenly charges forward, its massive form rising from the water like some mythical submarine of doom. Everyone screams and runs. You trip, fall backward into mud, and scramble like a panicked crab up the embankment. Thankfully, the beast crashes back into the deeper water instead of chasing the group onto land. It lingers for a moment, huffs, then turns downstream, angrily, but away. You lie on your back, panting, heart jackhammering. The priest kneels beside you. You live. You were blessed. You mutter, I was almost soup. You're sent home immediately. Hero adjacent, but also filthy, shaken, and soaking wet. Back at the village, the buzz spreads. By mid afternoon, your cousin is imitating your scream for an audience of children. Your mother hands you warm bread and says, next time, just yell louder. Thanks, Mom. Later that day, you're back on your normal rotation, weaving mats. It's a quiet task, and after the morning's drama, you welcome it. You sit in the shade and begin knotting reeds into a tight crisscross pattern. Your hands know the rhythm now: left over right, under, twist, pull. Over time, weaving becomes a form of meditation. You fall into a trance until a goat eats half your finished mat. You chase it, you fail. You return to your post and start again. An elder sits beside you, nodding approvingly. He begins telling you a story about Sobek, the crocodile god, and how he once challenged a hippo goddess to a wrestling match. Historians still argue, he says, whether hippos were feared or honored. Maybe both. You believe it. As evening approaches, a festival dancer stops by and asks if you'd be willing to help carry torches for a procession next week. You blink. Why me? You're good at not dying, she says. Fair. As the sun sets, painting the Nile gold again, you sit quietly near the water, this time well away from the reeds. You see ripples in the distance and wonder, is that the same hippo? Is it just a shadow? You back away, slowly. Back home, your cousin jokes, one more river mission and they'll make you an honorary priest. You reply, only if I get a better spear. You fall asleep to the distant hum of frogs and wind brushing the palms. No nightmares, but you still keep your feet tucked in, just in case. You're dreaming of figs, sweet, ripe, endless, when you're rudely awoken by feet stomping on your roof. Not metaphorically, literal feet on your roof. You sit up, alarmed, and immediately hear your neighbor shouting, the taxmen are here! You groan and flop backward onto your mat. Of course they are. It's collection season, the time of year when the Pharaoh's agents sweep through villages, counting goats, weighing grain, and ensuring that no one has forgotten their duty to the state. You scramble up, already sweating, because you remember something. Your family's grain jar is short. You used some of it last week, maybe a little too much, to trade for that healing poultice for your wrist, and now you're probably in trouble. Down in the courtyard, the tax collector's entourage has already set up a small table. There are two scribes, one who looks bored, the other hungry, and three guards with thick staffs and thinner patience. You step forward carefully, clutching the old scarab seal your father gave you, the one that's expired, but maybe, just maybe, could be passed off as current. The tax collector is a thin man in fine linen, face sunburned but smug. He barely looks at you. Name? He says. You give it. Family head? You give your father's. He scribbles. Grain quota? You freeze. One of the scribes raises an eyebrow. Well, you stammer something approximating the truth, then add, and we have the scarab seal of exemption from last season. You hold it out. The scribe examines it, sniffs, rubs it between two fingers like a jeweler. This is old, he says. Still legible. You reply. He holds it up to the sun, then shrugs. Half credit. The collector nods. Half ration. Add them to the labor draft. You groan out loud. Again, one of the guards chuckles. You should have hidden the seal better. You return home fuming, but you already know what's next. Another labor assignment, and this one is outside the village. You're going to the quarry. The quarry is half a day's walk away, across sun-blasted land, rock-strewn paths, and zero shade. You and a dozen others set off after a quick midday meal of onions and sour beer. The sun turns your tunic into cling wrap within minutes. By the time you arrive, you're parched and dusty. The foreman at the site greets you like a disappointed uncle. You'll be fetching stone chips and loading them into carts, he says. Break too much, you carry it back. You nod miserably. You're handed a bronze chisel and told to find the cracks. For the next several hours, you squat beside half-cut slabs of limestone and pry loose chunks while praying your chisel doesn't snap. Your palms are raw in 30 minutes. Your back rebels after an hour. The man next to you has only one ear. You don't ask. As you work, you overhear one of the older laborers talking about the last collector visit. They took my last jar of beer, he grumbles. Said it was state property. It was half drunk. Historians still argue, another says, whether tax agents followed strict rules or just made them up when they got thirsty. You believe both. Midday break is a silent affair. No one talks. Everyone drinks water that tastes vaguely like warm copper. You chew on dried dates, but they stick to your teeth and offer no joy. A foreman passes out what he calls motivation tablets, small clay discs inscribed with encouraging phrases like, "The Pharaoh sees your labor," or "Laziness is a curse." You drop yours in the dirt. After the break, you're told to help push a cart up a slope. It's full of irregular stone pieces, and the wooden wheels scream in protest. Halfway up, one wheel splinters, and the cart tips. You leap back just in time. A guard points. "You, fix it." You squat and wedge a stone under the broken axle, like you know what you're doing. It works, barely. By sunset, you can't feel your hands. Your shoulders have become abstract ideas. Your lips are cracked, your ears sunburned, and your legs move like borrowed stilts. But you survived. Back in the village, you stumble home. Your cousin greets you with, "I saw your name on the labor list. Did they flog anyone?" You collapse face first onto your mat. "No flogging," you mutter. "Just rocks." Your mother applies a balm to your back that smells like mint and goat fur. You're too tired to care or move. Before you fall asleep, she tucks the old scarab seal back into your hand. "We'll clean it," she says. "Maybe next time it'll work." You close your fingers around it and dream of chisels falling apart in your hands. You don't wake up naturally this time. You're woken, shoved actually, by your cousin, who's clutching a flickering oil lamp and whispering urgently, "Get up. We've got tomb duty." You groan. "What?" He hisses. "Tomb. Guarding. Tonight." You sit up slowly, your spine cracking like old pottery. Tomb duty. That's for soldiers, not underfed villagers, with sore wrists and expired scarab seals. But it's true. Apparently, the local tomb warden has recruited extra hands to stand watch over a recently uncovered burial chamber. There have been rumors, whispers, that grave robbers are active in the area. Even sacred tombs, meant to remain untouched for eternity, aren't safe from greedy hands. You're handed a torch and a dull wooden staff and given one instruction: don't go inside, just keep your eyes open. Great. The tomb is located on the edge of the necropolis, built halfway into the hillside, like a sand covered secret. A heavy stone door guards the entrance, but it's been recently pried open for excavation. Now it gapes like a mouth. As you settle in at the entrance with two other Night Watch recruits, you realize just how dark ancient Egypt can get. There's no moon tonight, no lanterns, just your torch, flickering and hissing, barely strong enough to hold back the shadows. The air is cold, cold. In Egypt, it smells like old earth, dried flowers, and the faint sting of embalming resin. And then, a sound. From inside the tomb, you freeze. It's a scrape, maybe a shuffle. The others tense, and one whispers, "Mouse!" You all stare at the blackness. A breath passes, then another. Nothing. You exhale slowly, shoulders dropping. Then something clinks. You jump. Your torch sputters. One of the others moves toward the entrance. Maybe a pottery shard fell. Maybe a ghost, you mutter. He ignores you. Eventually, the silence settles again. One by one, you sit back down, heart still pounding. A senior guard walks past and drops a heavy warning. If you enter without permission, you'll be cursed by the priests, if not the spirits. You nod vigorously. Tomb curses weren't just superstition, they were written into inscriptions, etched into stone, warning intruders that they'd be struck down by snakes, blindness, madness, or worse. And even though historians argue whether the curses were symbolic or psychological deterrence. Out here, in this cold, dark place, you believe in them deeply. The hours crawl. At one point, your eyes start to close just a little. Your head droops. Then the guard slaps your shoulder. Wake up. Tell me what's painted above the tomb door. You blink. What? He glares. It's a test. You scramble to your feet and peer up at the archway. In the dim torchlight, you make out symbols: an ankh, a reed, a scarab, and the familiar eye of Horus. Probably a prayer for protection. You whisper, life, renewal, protection. He grunts. Close enough. If you ever get cursed, yell that 3 times. Might help. You don't ask if it ever has. Around midnight, an archaeologist arrives from a nearby dig site. He carries a tablet, a paintbrush, and the air of someone who hasn't slept in days. Just taking rubbings, he mutters. Not disturbing anything. You all nod like chickens. He enters the tomb with a second guard and disappears into the darkness. You wait 1 minute, two, 5. Then his voice echoes. Fascinating glyphs? The guard replies. Stop touching things. After what feels like an eternity, they return, dusty, yes, and exhilarated. The archaeologist is clutching a charcoal rubbing. We found a passage that wasn't on the wall map, possibly a false door. He sounds excited. You feel nauseous. He thanks the guards, nods at you, and walks off into the night like it's normal to go scribbling around in a tomb after dinner. You settle back against the rock, cold now, down to your ribs. The other recruit beside you whispers, Do you think the dead know we're here? You glance at the tomb door. They built it with traps and warnings and curses. He nods. You both fall silent again. Near dawn, the last torch burns low. The horizon glows faintly. A line of priests begins to gather for a ritual to re-bless the site. They chant slowly, rhythmically, their voices rising with the sun. A priest walks past, places his hand on your head, and murmurs a blessing. You feel calmer, lighter. Then he adds, You'll still need to cleanse. You are near the doorway. Of course. Later, back home, your cousin greets you with open arms and an exaggerated bow. Ah, the brave tomb guardian returns. Did you survive? Are you haunted? You throw a pillow at him. Your mother insists on dabbing your forehead with a mixture of herbs and holy water. Just in case, she says. That night, you sleep deeply, quietly, no footsteps, no whispers, no dreams. But you still wake up briefly around midnight and glance toward the door, just in case. This morning, you're ready for anything except the assignment you're given. Go wash the temple linens. You blink. You've hauled stones, guarded tombs, buried chicken feet, nearly been mauled by a hippo. But now you're being asked to do laundry. Apparently, yes. It's not just any laundry, though. These are sacred linens, robes worn by priests, cloths used to drap altars, sashes that touch divine statues. And in ancient Egypt, these items aren't thrown in a bucket and scrubbed with soap. There are rituals involved. You're sent down to the river with a group of 3 others, a bar of soft natron soap, and strict instructions not to let the cloth touch the ground. Ever. It must be cradled like a child, one temple worker says, handing you a folded white sash. A child who could curse you if you dropped them. No pressure. You find a shady spot by the Nile where the water is shallow and slow moving. It's peaceful. Too peaceful. You don't trust it. You kneel at the water's edge and begin the process, dipping the cloth gently, rubbing with natron, lifting, rinsing, repeating. You're told to whisper prayers as you go. At first, you just hum. Then you start mumbling phrases you half remember from temple songs. The others work in silence. Birds caw in the distance. Frogs chirp. You begin to relax until a crocodile surfaces 5 feet away. Everyone freezes. It stares. You stare. The cloth dangles dangerously close to the water. Then it sinks back down, without a sound. One of the other workers exhales and mutters, Sobek likes jokes. You do not. Later, as you carefully lay the cloths to dry on clean sun-warmed stones, an older woman points to a corner of one sash. Smudge, she says, do it again. You nod and return to the river. On your second trip, you step on a sharp shell and limp back to shore. On your third trip, a fish jumps and splashes half your rope. On your fourth trip, you drop the soap. It's carried off by the current like it's fleeing the assignment. You try not to scream. By midday, the linens are laid out in perfect rows, drying in the sun like sleeping spirits. You sit back, sweating and mildly traumatized, but proud. You didn't drop anything. You didn't get cursed. You only mildly stepped on a fish. Then a goat walks across two sashes. Everyone yells. You chase the goat runs, the goat poops. Guess which sash gets hit? You spend the next hour rewashing it, while whispering things that technically count as prayers, but sound a lot like complaints. As the sun lowers, the linens are rolled carefully, tied with red string, and returned to the temple. You carry the final bundle. The head priest accepts it with a nod. Cleanliness is devotion, he says. Well done. You're about to leave when he adds, we need more incense sticks made. You'll help tomorrow. You nod, silently screaming inside. Back home, your cousin sniffs your clothes. You smell like temple floors and wet frogs. Your mother, however, beams. You are trusted with holy cloth. That means something. You sit down to dinner, sore from kneeling, sunburnt on the back of your neck, and lightly stained with natron dust. But deep down, something about the day feels peaceful. You wash the gods' linens. You may never wash your hands again, unless they ask. That night, as you lie on your mat, you close your eyes and see sunlight on white fabric, ripples in the Nile, and the shape of a crocodile watching, amused, just as you drift off. Your cousin mutters, hope you folded it right, otherwise Set might smite you. You smile, roll over, and whisper, I folded it fine. Probably. You wake before dawn again, not because anyone calls for you, but because something has changed. The air feels still, not just quiet, but weighted, like the village itself is holding its breath. You step outside and see it. The sky is gray, overcast, with a strange wind drifting in from the west. Dust swirls in low spirals near the temple. A dog whines and hides beneath a cart. Something is coming. Your cousin approaches, unusually serious. They say a sandstorm's brewing, he mutters. We're to prepare the homes, and the sick are being brought to the temple for shelter. You nod. You've heard of these storms. Kamashin winds. They're cold, hot, dry gales that roll in like dragons made of sand, devouring everything in their path. Your task today: help secure the rooftops and deliver extra food stores to the temple granary in case the storm lasts more than a day. You start by climbing onto your neighbor's roof. Again, this time though, you're not patching thatch. You're weighing it down with stones, rope, and damp reed mats to prevent the wind from peeling it off, like fruit skin. Your hands blister fast. Your tunic becomes a net for dust. Below, women are gathering dried beans, sealing jars, and herding children indoors. Someone yells about missing goats. Someone else throws a fish at them. It's chaos, but efficient chaos. Everyone knows their part. You spend the next hour hammering pegs into the ground to help anchor palm fences. One man ties a shrine statue down, another coats his doorway in wet mud so the sand won't eat the wood. By midday, your lips are cracked, your eyes squinting against rising grit, and your ears filled with dry wind. Then you're sent to help inside the temple granary, where supplies are being inventoried. You hold jars of beer, bundles of onions, sacks of grain, all while listening to two scribes argue about whether this storm is a sign from Sekhmet or just very bad weather. Historians still argue. One says, if these storms meant divine wrath or seasonal patterns. You wonder if it can be both. By late afternoon, the sky darkens further, not from nightfall, but from the swirling brown mist sweeping in from the dunes. You can hear the wind before you feel it, a low, groaning moan that rises in pitch as it gets closer, like the gods have decided to whisper warnings in sand. Then it hits. A sudden gust slams into the village, ripping palm leaves off roofs and sending baskets flying. You duck behind a wall, shielding your face with your arm as the air turns solid with dust. It stings. It coats your skin instantly. People rush to seal doorways with reed mats and clay. Temple priests shout instructions while chanting protective verses. You help pull a cartload of children inside just before the storm thickens to blindness. Now the world is orange gray and howling. Inside the temple granary, you huddle with others, breathing shallow through a damp cloth. Someone offers you dried figs. You take one. It tastes like relief. Storm rages for what feels like hours. Walls creak. Dust squeezes through every crack. One man claims to hear the voice of Thoth in the wind. Another just burps and says it's the beans. Eventually, the wind softens. Not stops, just drops enough for your ears to unclench. You're sent to sweep the temple entrance. An ironic task, since sand is still falling from the sky, but ritual must be maintained. You sweep, slowly, rhythmically. The storm has taken the edge off everything, your thoughts, your muscles, even your fear. And then, quiet. Real, perfect quiet. You look up. The sky has split open into blue again. Pale light pours across the dunes. The village breathes. People step outside cautiously. You watch them blinking, brushing off sand, some laughing, others just staring at the sky like it's a miracle. And maybe it is. Back at home, you help your family clean up the courtyard. Your mother gives you a long look, brushes dust from your cheek, and simply says, you did well. You nod. Later that night, as the stars reclaim their sky and the frogs return to singing by the canal, you lie down. Too tired to think, but too full to sleep. Your cousin whispers, remember when we thought we'd be farmers forever? You smile, voice rough from sand. We are, but also priests, builders, merchants, sacrifices, snake bitten, beetle covered linen washers. You chuckle softly. The moon rises. You survived. One more day, one more trial. And somehow, through curses and scorpions and symbolic deaths, through sandstorms and sacred scrolls, you've made it entirely, fully, completely, through a single day in ancient Egypt. And it only nearly killed you 17 different ways. Now, let your breath slow and your thoughts drift like the Nile's quiet current under a silver moon. Feel the cool breeze that follows the storm, soft, like linen brushed across skin, whispering over the thatched rooftops and the calm canals. The sand has settled, the torches have dimmed, the gods have gone quiet again. For now, your hands are sore, but they rest now, folded gently over your chest, fingers stained with ink and natron, papyrus dust, and healing herbs. You've carried stones and secrets, and maybe even a little bit of courage you didn't know you had. The night is calm, the sky above is full of stars that watched the same lands 5,000 years ago. You are part of that ancient rhythm now. One day, one breath, one quiet moment in the great hush of history. Let the sleep come gently. Let your thoughts fade, not with fear or fatigue, but with the strange satisfaction of having lived history, rather than just studied it. Tomorrow, the Nile will rise again. The temple bells will ring. The priest will scold someone for sneezing near a statue. But that's for another day. For now, rest. Let the gods guard your dreams, and let the sands smooth your thoughts into stillness. Shh, it's over. Sleep well, wonder of time.